Alrighty, guys, welcome to the stream. Today we will be watching The Existential Elk, the darkest philosophical essay ever written by Pursuit of Wonder here. Go check Pursuit of Wonder out if you want to watch this full video about The Existential Elk, the darkest philosophical essay ever written. So, let's get right into it. One sec, gotta get the audio rolling here.
Use my link in the description. In his mind, Peter Vessel Zapp. Things dissolved before long bygone times. Man awoke, and 15% off your first order.
Alright, cool.
One night in long bygone times, man awoke and saw himself. He saw that he was naked under cosmos, homeless in his own body. All things dissolved before his testing thought. Wonder above wonder, horror above horror, unfolded in his mind. Peter Vessel Zappa. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, a species known as the Irish elk, often referred to as the giant deer, emerged. Up until just a few thousand years ago, this creature roamed Eurasia as one of the largest deer species to have ever lived, standing at around 7 feet tall, 10 feet long, and with massive...
I'm not gonna lie, I did not think that this was actually gonna be talking about a real elk. And I don't think it is. I think they're about to make a metaphor or correlation, but I don't know. I'm just confused on why they're actually talking about elk.
Massive antlers spanning up to 12 feet across. Millions of years of evolution led to the immense size and proportions.
Are elks that big? Elks are 12 feet? Oh my gosh, my screen's been frozen. OBS really's got to do something about this. I'm gonna run this back.
Peter Vessel Zappa. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, a species known as the Irish elk, often referred to as the giant deer, emerged. Up until just a few thousand years ago, this creature roamed Eurasia as one of the largest deer species to have ever lived, standing at around 7 feet tall, 10 feet long, and with massive antlers spanning up to 12 feet across.
12 feet across is crazy. That's what I was saying. That's really crazy. I feel like 12 feet. I did not realize elks are that big.
Millions of years of evolution led to the immense size and proportions of this giant deer and its antlers. Their antlers were weapons forged by and wielded against nature, used for mating, display, and survival in a highly competitive and gruesome world. After a certain point, however, as these antlers continued to grow, their use and function were eclipsed by the problems they imposed onto the species. The antlers weighed their heads down and made swift mobility in most environments essentially impossible. They could no longer easily navigate the forest to quickly evade predators and human hunters, and access to nutrition could not...
Could you guys imagine having 12 feet worth of antlers on your head?
readily
I mean, yeah, no wonder they can't move around or do anything. I'm surprised they could even live or hunt. I mean, there's so much weight. And that's just that reminds me of those videos of those dogs who have like a 4 or 5 foot stick in their mouth and they're just bumping into everything, hitting everything in their pathway. I couldn't imagine 12 feet of long of antlers. That's insane.
Sustain the overgrowth of their antlers, often leading to nutritional deficiencies in the rest of the body. What was supposed to be a feature for survival and thriving turned into an obstruction of these very goals, a maladaptation of evolution. In the end, these overgrown horns ultimately contributed to the giant deer going extinct in the year 5700 BCE. Alongside the Irish elk's existence and extinction was humankind's emergence and evolution. By the time the giant deer had reached its fate, humanity and civilization had long since formed, playing a role in the deer's demise through hunting. With the most advanced form of consciousness the planet had yet seen, humanity not only roamed, but assumed the planet. Millions of years of evolution led to the unique form of consciousness found inside the heads of humankind. This consciousness is a weapon forged by and wielded against nature, a means of survival and thriving in a highly gruesome and competitive world. Though this consciousness has allowed for achievements like highly organized hunting, agriculture, morality, civilization,
I don't know if I just got lost.
With the most advanced form of consciousness the planet had yet seen, humanity not only roamed, but assumed the planet. Millions of years of evolution led to the unique form of consciousness found inside the heads of humankind. This consciousness...
That's subjective. I feel like not everybody watching this video is gonna necessarily agree to that, if you know what I mean.
Consciousness is a weapon forged by and wielded against nature, a means of survival and thriving in a highly gruesome and competitive world. Though this...
I will say I'm really kind of confused on where this is going.
Consciousness has allowed for achievements like highly organized hunting, agriculture, morality, civilization, and industry. 20th century Norwegian philosopher Peter Wessel Zapffe argued that our consciousness also exhibits the same maladaptive evolutionary qualities as the antlers of the giant deer. Our consciousness, Zapffe argued, has extended past its practical functions, leaving us with an excess weight and size of awareness that we don't know what to do with, and that has turned existence into a problem for us. A superfluous outgrowth of nature destined to extinguish its harborer. Zapffe writes, "Life had overshot its target, blowing itself apart."
So they're saying that our brains or consciousness or minds are resembling a antler because we have so much
a species
to think about, so much to think about. I guess so many emotions and so many things just you know, like I guess when our conscience developed originally, there was only a few things we had to worry about as far as like survival, but in today's day and age there's just so much, and now that it's like dead,
been armed too heavily by spirit made almighty without, but equally a menace to its own well-being. Its weapon was like a sword without hilt or plate, a two-edged blade cleaving everything, but he who is to wield it must grasp the blade and turn the one edge toward himself. Zapffe was born in 1899 in Tromsø, Norway. Much of his life was split between three areas that seem, at least on the face of them, quite different: mountaineering, law, and existential philosophy, which he expressed in both academic and artistic forms. Despite writing about the deepest crevasses of despair and anxiety, Zapffe spent a substantial amount of his life ascending the literal heights of mountains, becoming a notable early member of the Norwegian rock climbing community and the first to ascend several peaks across the Scandinavian mountains. In 1923, after obtaining his degree from the University of Oslo, he also became a lawyer, though his focus quickly moved away from law. Underscoring his life, and what Zapffe is most widely known for, was his perceptiveness and work in literature and philosophy. With profoundly intense and melancholic prose, his philosophical work can bring even the most innocent, unthinking individual down from the peaks of optimism and into the valleys of uncertainty, at least if they're not prepared for the journey. What connected much...
It's crazy how, like, I feel like people are so much just more, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there now who can do a lot of different things, but I mean, to go from being a lawyer to literally becoming a philosophical literature artist is pretty crazy to me, I feel like, but I think that's really cool. You know, I feel like being a lawyer, you see things that you don't always want to see. You deal with cases that you don't always want to deal with, and that can kind of help open your eyes to philosophical views and ways of thinking and how it can kind of just affect your emotions and the way you think in general.
Zapfe's work, sensibilities, and life in general appeared to be an intense awareness of death. More specifically, he exhibited a kind of death anxiety that contributed to a highly lucid awareness of human awareness itself, our sensitivity towards suffering, decay, and futility, and the interplay these things have with the human desire for meaning and solace. In 1933, at age 34, Zapffe published his first philosophical work, an essay titled The Last Messiah, a short but devastating piece that, with the precision of the tip of a nail, shatters the tempered glass of comfortable and socially acceptable ideals. 8 years later,
And that's what I mean right there is like just being a lawyer. I knew he wasn't going to be writing nothing positive just because he has a good taste of the real world. I mean, and the only reason I say that is thinking about yourself being a lawyer and you have to deal with a case for a client where you know that they're guilty of doing, like, let's say a crime, but for the money or whatever, you have to fight for them. I mean, imagine being like just a public attorney and you have to fight for people who are clearly innocent. And you have to just either convince them to be innocent or they're like, they want to try and be guilty when they know they did it and whatever. And you just got to fight for these people. Like, I can imagine your eyes opening to a lot of things philosophically. Let's see what he talked about.
In 1941, he expanded on the concepts of the essay in his book, On the Tragic. In these works, Zapffe measures the weight and size of human consciousness as it teeters back and forth inside the human skull. Like the antlers of the giant deer, he argues that consciousness weighs us down with its immense awareness, revealing to us the conditions of being in all its horrors. We see in plain sight that we are subjected to and limited by the corporeality of the body, controlled by the laws of a chaotic and unknowable reality, and abandoned by the universe.
I feel like, just off the rip, I know we're still kind of just getting into this video, but I feel like this is more of an emotional thing and a feeling rather than a philosophical way of thinking. Because, I mean, it's easy to feel this way, and maybe it is true, but, like, even if you feel this way, I don't think you should transition it into a whole entire way of thinking.
And our need for meaning and redemption. For Zapffe, like the antlers of the giant deer, this seems like it would make long-term survival for humanity very unlikely. In his words, he has lost his right of residence in the universe, has eaten from the tree of knowledge, and been expelled from paradise. He is mighty in the near world, but curses his might as purchased with his harmony of soul, his innocence, his inner peace in life's embrace. And yet,
I also don't really necessarily get the super correlation between this welcome to this live stream. It's the Existential Elk, the darkest philosophical essay ever written. And he's correlating right now his consciousness to the antlers of an elk and how they're 12 feet long and how they went extinct. It's a certain elk and how he's correlating consciousness and mind to it because our minds and consciousness have gone extinct because there's just so much to think about and do, I guess, is kind of what I'm picking up on it. But I feel like the way the elks went extinct is because they have 12-foot long antlers that are just, I mean, imagine walking around with something so wide you can barely move. They weigh you down. Like, I get the metaphor, but I don't get the specific correlations in a way. Let's see if I can dig deeper.
Of course, humanity has endured for hundreds of thousands of years, thrived. This left Zapffe wondering, why? Why has humanity endured its apparently futile, terrifying, and absurd condition with such fervor? And perhaps more accurately, how? In the face of no clear definitive whys, how does humanity continue on and deal with such lucid awareness of the inherent tragedy of its existence? For the giant deer,
if you ask me, I feel like that just has to do with how capable humans are. Like, sorry about that, excuse me. But, I mean, humans are just, I think that we are some of the most advanced, I know we are the most advanced obviously, the most advanced living organisms, I should say, in order to make decisions. And I think we're just the most capable. And that's what consciousness is it gives us the capability to make decisions that animals can't make. Animals make decisions based off survival instincts and things like that, versus part of the decisions we make are based off survival instincts, but part of it are also because we can just sit and think about it and kind of actually lay it out. Like, animals can't do that. They just do things based off of kind of their immediate reaction to it. So to say like how have our minds been able to hold up for so long and handle all this information and emotions and understanding more and more about life is like, I don't know. I mean, I think he's just undermining the actual capabilities of humans and the mind. I mean, I think we're barely breaking the ice on what humans and minds can do. I mean, think about where we'll be at in the future. Now, he could be right. Maybe at some point we learn too much and it's too much for our own good and it ends up weighing us down and taking us
Zappa
out.
points out that if it could have cut or trimmed its horns every time they grew too large, it could have relieved itself of the antler's burden and increased the likelihood of survival, individually and collectively. Of course, however, they couldn't do this. They were deer. Humans, however, can do something like this. In a sense, we can shave down and saw off our antlers. We can dilute and soften our consciousness, using it for less than it is capable of, and leaving much of what it affords us untouched and unexamined. And this is what Zappa believes we do, how we endure and survive. He writes, "Cultural history, as well as observation of ourselves and others, allow the following answer. Most people learn to save themselves by artificially limiting the content of consciousness." Specifically, Zappa argues that there are 4 primary methods by which we do this.
That's interesting. I want to know what these methods are. That's interesting to think about. That we restrict our minds from doing what we're actually capable of. I think a lot of people do that. I think some people do it on purpose. I think other people do it out of their control. They just like I don't know. I like to think that I'm doing as much as I can, but at the same time I almost know I'm not doing everything I'm capable of. And that's a good question. It's like, why am I not? I if I want everything that I think I'm capable of, why wouldn't I go and try and do this and chase this?
Isolation, anchoring, distraction, and sublimation. Isolation essentially boils down to deliberate or unconscious ignorance. That is, ignoring or repressing thoughts about the reality of our condition. Despite horrific and unfathomable qualities arguably being so fundamental to our nature and experience of existence, both our minds and our conversations almost never bring them up. This is clear in the conventions of most social interactions.
I feel like this just has to do with not wanting to talk about things that are out of your control. I mean, yeah, there's so many things that are going wrong. There's so many things that I could complain about in my day, but maybe I'm not understanding the isolation exactly. Maybe he's making a different reference to like actual bad things that go on in life. But like, I don't know, when bad things go on in my life, like sometimes it's easier to talk about it, but like, it doesn't really change the situation. If you ask me, you still got to deal with it and figure it out, whether you talk about it or you don't.
The absurdity of reason and the futility of everything in most conversations. And so, by not talking about these existential matters, and better yet, not thinking about them, we essentially operate in the same way we would toward a young child, but toward ourselves. That is, we self-shelter. We change the TV station to cartoons. We answer hard questions with simple answers, and we deny the horrific and complex truth of things, believing everything will be okay. Anchoring is similar, but on a more organized social scale. It is the Santa Clauses, Easter bunnies, and tooth fairies we participate in and carry with us into adulthood. It is the traditions and systems we anchor to in order to feel purpose and guidance around our decisions and aims in life. According to Zappa, the most common anchors include God, the church, the state, morality, fate, the law of life, the people, the future.
I actually do believe this a lot. Even though I'm someone who does celebrate certain traditions and things like that, I do think a lot of the reason people believe in God. Now, I'm not arguing everybody, and I'm not saying this is exactly how it is. This is just my opinion. This is strictly my opinion. But I think a lot of people who believe in God in the church do it because, number one, of their environment, how they were raised, and because it gives them a safe place that they can rely on, exactly like what he's saying, in the future, whether that's after death or just in their life, along their journey in life in general.
Sure. Distraction refers to the explicit actions individuals carry out on a regular basis, often based on anchors, to occupy one's mind away from thinking about the reality of their condition. We set up industries and markets so we can carry out tasks and goals. We play and watch sports and entertainment. We form and sustain the responsibilities of tradition and culture, and so on. We putter around and do menial things that don't require the true force and violence of our consciousness. It is like play fighting inconsequential battles.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's true too. I think we all distract ourselves, but I feel like we have to. You can't live your life. And it's not really a distraction. I feel like it's more of a coping thing rather than a distraction. Like people say doing this distracts them, but usually you're doing that thing and you're still thinking about it. It just helps and it relieves it a little bit better.
With swords made of nerf instead of steel. We avoid the harm while feeling a sense of active participation. Lastly, sublimation refers to a sort of creative process in which one takes the dread and anxiety of existence and transfigures it into something aesthetic and expressive, functionally alchemizing the suffering of human consciousness into whatever human consciousness can produce that is more pleasant, or, at the very least, novel. This is, according to Zappa, the least common method, but the most powerful and self-embracing one. The problem with all these defense mechanisms, for Zappa, including sublimation, is that they are temporary and self-destructive. They require constant upkeep and constant denial of what makes a human human. They do not resolve or meaningfully face the root cause, the nature of human consciousness. Instead, they reject it. In the same way,
If you're doing all four of these things, or if you're doing one of them and you're abusing it, I do think that's true. I think the point of a human is to understand the emotions and feel emotions. We got the blessing to feel these emotions, and make these certain decisions and things and like do these things that, animals and things can't do. So we should try to use as much as what we're capable of. And I do think that just overly distracting yourself with all those isolation, distracting, anchoring, sublimation. I think if you do all of those and you're abusing it, you got to at some point accept the feelings and emotions that you feel and just experiences and bad things and good things that happen throughout your life.
that if the giant deer constantly trimmed its horns, it would merely be self-mutilating itself, having to always be something other than what it is. Zappa sees the defense mechanisms of humankind as the same sort of self-denial and mutilation. We gain survival and continuance as a species, but we lose ourselves as humans in full form. To be truly whole in our consciousness, according to Zappa, would mean to see and know the reality of our condition in all its horrors and incongruities. This, however, would equate to a sort of inevitable annihilation of the species, as we would determine it no longer sensible to reproduce. Here, we find a dilemma at the foundation of human existence.
I feel like there's another philosophical idea that's similar to this. And it's very popular. There is. And it's literally just the fact that, there's no meaning to life. So it's pretty much just not worth living. I feel like this is an extension of that. I can't remember what that is, what philosophical point of view that is. But it's pretty much just saying, there's no true meaning to life at all. So you can look at that both ways, live it up since there's no meaning, or there's no point in living. And I feel like that's kind of what he's saying in a way, just a lot more detailed and a lot more emotion driven, kind of a lot more detailed and specific about how we distract ourselves from the feelings that we're supposed to feel and our overall emotional and mental capabilities, I think.
We possess both the desire to continue as a species, as well as the desire for ultimate solace and purpose. Solace and purpose, however, can never be obtained through continuance, because they cannot really be obtained at all. Continuance requires sustained blind striving toward these things that we can never achieve, but realizing we can never achieve them, at least at scale, would result in a contradiction to our desire to continue.
And I feel like this is when you could just argue that you should just become a Buddhist. Because Buddhists are just people who are at peace and accept the fact that they can't chase these things that he's referring to that people want in their life.
So, these two binaries clash and explode inside us, their fragments emerging at the top of our heads like pointed horns of absurdity. In his essay, The Last Messiah, Zapfo refers to a figure, the first and last only real Messiah of humanity. He invokes this figure as an embodiment of his philosophy, an individual who will show humanity that its existence has no redemption or higher meaning, only the burdens of its awareness. And through this, humankind would once and for all see through the illusions and self-deceptions and realize its despair in full force, flopping its head forward under the weight of their horns and overcoming their fundamental nature to propagate an end to humanity. However, here, Zappa seems to suggest, albeit with ironic framing, that humanity's options are either self-deception or self-extinction. But perhaps there is another option, if not many. Perhaps rather than the cessation of the species, we can work to resolve our dilemma through the cessation of our dependency on resolutions, the need for solace and purpose. Perhaps through a slow and patient kind of exposure therapy of our consciousness to our consciousness, we can form an indifference about it, a welcoming embrace of our condition in full form. The cessation of the human species, which Zappa alludes to, suggests an overcoming of the biological imperative of reproduction. If we could overcome that, could we not also, instead, overcome our very need for purpose and redemption, and still survive and thrive? Perhaps we can find our way.
I feel like I would need someone to sit down and explain to me the difference between that and a Buddhist. He's literally, I feel like, explaining a Buddhist who just has no actual purpose and keeps their emotions at peace.
Not through direction, but through the embrace of aimlessness, through clearing the brush of desire, of purpose, of hubris, of certainty. Every path in the forest is made through clearing, not amassing. Though it seems Zappa, on a philosophical level, would likely believe this not to be a probable solution for humankind, perhaps his life suggests otherwise. In Zappa's life, he climbed mountains yet unclimbed, and forged ideas yet unthought. He wrote literary works discussing concepts that themselves served as a sort of transcendent sublimation, an overcoming of the very conditions he wrote about, while not denying any truth of them. And this is perhaps the perfect embodiment of both the absurdity and the ability of humankind. As a species, we have and surely will continue to do the same, to reach new peaks and new ideas, to face up to reality, and to slowly but surely transcend and transfigure. But we will only do this so long as we continue, individually and collectively. If we can,
I just want to say that this is definitely not the darkest philosophical essay ever written. It cannot be. It's not even that dark, really. I think it's literally just a philosophical viewpoint on how our consciousness is just constantly chasing something that could eventually cause us to go extinct, similar to the existential elk. Because we do these distractions and all these things and chase purposes. You know, I feel like this is like a pretty, I feel like there's another philosophical viewpoint that's literally this. Maybe this just has a little bit more specific and correlations, but yeah, this is just pretty much saying that the human mind is constantly portraying or like chasing things, you know, and that makes it in a way not worth living because we're chasing things that our mind wants that our body can't get, or yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. I don't think this is that dark. I thought this was gonna be a little bit darker, but maybe I'm not fully diving in deep enough into the thought of this. So in the comments, let me know what you guys think and how dark this is and your viewpoints on this.
continue forward, we can survive. And if we can survive, we can evolve. And if we can evolve, we can improve and better endure. We can better bear the weight atop our necks as our necks grow stronger, our sightlines rise, and the landscape of the world opens up.
You know, it's actually very motivational, actually, I think, rather than dark. And I think this is what we've been doing. We've been, you know, evolving and carrying this weight and doing better. And yeah. All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys liked that view or that video, The Existential Elk, the darkest philosophical essay ever written. I don't think that it was that dark, but if you want to check out the full video, go to Pursuit of Wonder. Yeah, that's where you can watch this full video if you don't want to watch me. But yeah, overall it's a good live stream. I did like the video. I like the idea, but I don't think it's that dark. And I don't really think that I don't really think that that was that. Like, I think there's another philosophical viewpoint that says that same thing. I do. I truly do think there is. But yeah, overall it's still a pretty good video. Interesting concept. I like the details that he went into. And my idea is that if you're thinking like that, then you should look into taking on habits that Buddhists have as far as being at peace with life. Welcome to the live stream to my second viewer. I just finished this video up, but it will be published to my YouTube channel in about 5 to 10 minutes. So if you want to watch this full video, I was reacting to the existential elk theory, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm gonna stop stream and upload this video if you'd like to check it out too.